Well, John, here we are at the dawn of a new season. Your first full season in management. How much are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I think it's been a long old build up from the back end of last year, with everything that went on, going into the off season with a lot of positivity and knowing the amount of business that we needed to do over the summer. So it's been the focus over the past few weeks has been on recruitment, and then it's just switched when we got back into the building here into integrating the new team and making sure that the current players or the old players come back in good form. And yeah, we've had a good 6 weeks doing that. So yeah, really looking forward to tomorrow.
You said at the end of the season you knew how much recruitment you had on the cards, and let's go back to the start of the window when we really hit the ground running in terms of transfers. How pleasing was it to bring in so many players in such a short space of time?
One of the things that was a real hallmark of the summer window for us was the fact that the work had pretty much been done by the time that we finished the season, and certainly by the first couple of weeks of the summer we knew where we were with quite a few of the targets, and a couple we had to move on from. The rest of them we accelerated, I think, at a decent pace when they'd been released from their clubs or when they became available from other clubs as well. So it was a really good spot to be in. Actually, we found ourselves in a really fortunate position, I think, maybe 3 or 4 weeks into the off season where we could make a few signings, and when the window opened we were just in a position to start announcing them. It felt like, I suppose for everybody externally, that everything was happening really quickly, but for us it was just the culmination of quite a few months worth of hard work and some real diligence behind the scenes in terms of what we were doing to try and bring in the right type of players, not just watching them but also then digging into them as characters and finding out what they were like to bring into the dressing room as well. So yeah, it was great for us. I think the most important thing was that a couple of weeks prior to the start of coming back here for pre-season, it really felt like we knew where we were going in terms of numbers, what we'd have coming out and training with us, and who we would take out to Spain as well. So by the time we did go out to Spain, we had almost the entire squad that you'll see tomorrow with with each other.
Let's talk about pre-season and the start. How much you touched on it there, but how important and how much of a boost was it to come into the first day of training with those two groups full of players that are your own, rather than having to backfill with trialists and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was one of the features I think throughout pre-season is that we had our own players. We didn't have to take on any trialists throughout the entire length of pre-season, and that was a real deliberate move, but it's a positive as well because there were times when we could have taken a few on, but we wanted to go with the youth instead and have a look what it was like for some of our some of the academy players who did really well in the couple of games that they came into, I think the Gosport and Havant game. So that was really pleasing from our point of view. And overall, just to know that we had those bodies in the building and they were our players. Most of them, I think, up until the signing of Abu, had all come in on permanent. So just to know they were our players here for the long term and really invest in everything that we're trying to do here. I think it was really, really beneficial for us to actually be able to do that, to lay that down from a very early point in pre-season and then crack on from there.
You touched on the Spain trip as well. Went there after being in for just a week. So how would you summarise the work you managed to do over there?
It was really positive. One of the things that the away trips give you is a real chance to work with players extensively. So when we're here during pre-season, we might do a double session, but out in Spain we were doing 3 sessions a day. It also gives the boys a chance to eat together, to spend their downtime together, to essentially be in and around the hotel, just chatting, getting to know each other. Really important for the new lads as well to integrate themselves within the group, and also just to sort of take a break from being over here. It's such a long season and a long pre-season. Just having that sort of 5 or 6 days in the middle of pre-season, breaking things up and taking them to another country where the weather's a bit nicer and the environment's just a bit different. That was really good. But most importantly was the work that we managed to do out there. So for the first 2 days we did 3 sessions a day. The heat became a bit much on day 3, so we only did 2, and then we managed to get the game in as well. So overall, we had a really, really positive trip.
I suppose when you're on trips like that, it could be easy to do more work than necessary. So how important was it for you to get the balance right between training, resting and recovery and the lads having that downtime as well?
Yeah, we did a fair bit of work, I think, but that was, I think, the advantage of having it in the second week of pre-season, that we were so far away from needing to sort of sharpen up and needing to come off the lads in terms of the physical output during training, that we could go quite heavy, and we also had a couple of days off at the back end of the trip. So after the Friday travel day, we had Saturday, Sunday off to come back in fresh here on the Monday. And that was really important for us as well, to make sure that when we were out there and when we were working hard, and we were gauging and monitoring what we did with everything. And thanks to the S&C department, we were managing to do that real time. And it's just getting that fine balance, I suppose, getting the right balance between making sure that we don't overdo it and leave ourselves open to injuries, and we don't underdo it, because you've only got really a quite short space of time to make sure the boys do get fit for the opening game of the season, and that's what pre-season's all been about.
And it's not just about the players as well. You and your coaching team were able to further strengthen your bond and the way of working you all have together out in Spain as well. How do you think that can positively affect matters on the pitch?
I think it's really important. I think what the lads see every day from the staff is ultimately going to drip down into the way that they go about their business in this building, the way that they train, the way they interact with each other. If we have a positive staff unit who are doing their jobs well, that's the most important thing for us. We want to come in and enjoy ourselves, but we also want to make sure that we do the job. And if you have people that want to come into work and actually want to be here until late and want to go away to Spain and scribble away and do all the sort of things that we have to do to make it a successful pre-season, and I think you're halfway there. And I think we've got that as a staff unit. So there's always plenty of time that we always think there's always plenty of time for us to have a bit of downtime as long as all our work's done, and we can always come back and do our work. It's one of the sort of rules that we have. If you ever need to finish off your work, you're always welcome to come back to the office and do it whenever you want. So there's no shortage of hours in terms of when we can do that, and I think it really does then drip feed into the players and their mentality as well. If they see a hard-working staff and a staff that are enjoying themselves, then hopefully it'll reflect and it'll be the same for them. So I think it's a really important starting point. The players all look up to the staff in terms of for guidance and for coaching essentially. So we've got to make sure we're bang on it every second of every day, and a big part of that is how we interact with each other.
You said about the staff's effort and hard work. How pleased are you with them during the pre-season period?
They've been amazing, really. They've been amazing. They've gone above and beyond some of the stuff that we've asked them to do in the off-season. So the work for the staff started in the off-season, where we started to prepare, particularly around style of play, set pieces, how we wanted to go about our business as a staff as well. So there was a huge amount to do, and we made sure we kept in contact over the summer. And then as soon as we got back in, I think everybody in the office really wants to be here, and that's a really good place to be. Everybody does enjoy coming into work, and that makes it a lot easier when we're asking a lot of everybody in there. And they've come up with some really good pieces of work over the summer. One of the things that we've really drilled down into again is set pieces. There's probably no surprise that Joe Perdomo's done most of the work on that. And we think we're in a better position than we were last year in terms of preparation, in terms of feeding information to the lads. So just little things like that I think all add up in terms of the way that we want to play and the way we want to go about our business this year.
You named Marlon as captain on the first day out in Spain as well. So how pleased were you to be able to do that and make that appointment? Yeah,
I mean it was a fairly obvious one for me. The first day that I came in here on the Friday, I had sort of the selection to make in terms of who I was going to make captain for the Exeter City game, and it was, like I said, it was an obvious choice. I thought that it should be Marlon. He's led this club now for certainly last season in an exemplary manner. I think the way he is off the pitch, the way he leads the players on the pitch, the success he's had in his career, I think all feed into him being a really successful captain. I think most importantly for me is he knows how to run a dressing room, and he knows what standards look like, and we've got a really sort of close working relationship, and I can bounce off him, and if there's any suggestions or anything that he wants to bring to me, he does that as well. And I think it helps that many moons ago we played together and he was a young lad on loan from Portsmouth, so it's sort of come full circle, and I just think he deserves it overall. He's a Pompey boy, and his family's from around here and still live locally, and I think it means a lot to him. It means a huge amount to him to be captain of the football club, and while that's not a reason alone to give him the captaincy, I think it really does add to the benefit of what he can bring to the team, the club, the squad, and everything around that.
We spoke to Marlon in his interview. He said about the culture and wanting to affect that. What's that like to hear from your captain, that he doesn't want to only sort of lead the team, he wants to really dig down and make those changes off the pitch as well as on it?
Yeah, and I think I alluded to that in terms of what I can rely on with Marlon off the pitch and how he runs the dressing room, and I think that's just probably another way to put it in terms of how he runs the dressing room, the culture around the dressing room, around the way that the boys go about their business. There's a huge amount that we don't see as staff, and we have to rely on players to do things properly, and we want to enable them to do that. They're all adults and they all live their lives away from football as well, and there's only so much we can control here, and actually what we do want to engender is certainly an environment where we're not trying to be controlling, that they're professionals, they know how to live a professional life, and ultimately if they don't do things properly, then they'll be left behind, because the league is a very unforgiving place and people will be found out. And certainly, Marlon brings a huge amount in terms of contributing to that. He's been great in just taking that burden off my shoulders, because I genuinely don't think that the head coach should have too much to do with the inner workings of what's actually going on in the dressing room. It should be the players' inner sanctum. It should be their place where they feel pretty comfortable going about their business, and ultimately I think that they do that really well. We'll see come the first few games, and we'll see over the season how well the boys are looking after themselves, because it's a long old slog, the League One season. We've got 46 league games plus all of the cup games as well, and in order to fulfill those fixtures at a very high level of physical intensity, you have to live your life right, and that's where that culture and standards all come into it and come to the fore.
And in terms of the pre-season fixture programme, we haven't really spoke about them during the schedule. How do you assess the performances overall?
I think we've had a mixed bag in terms of performances and results. Mostly they've been positive. Some have been slightly disappointing, but one thing that we're really conscious of taking on board is the fact that all of the exercises that we've had have been exactly that. They've been fitness exercises. We've looked to implement a style of play, but really I would say the switch has been sort of flicked this week in terms of going into competitive mode and making sure that we're ramping up for the first league game of the season. And it's been great. I think some of the stuff that we've seen in pre-season, and you don't want it all to go perfectly, because if it does, I think you're in the wrong place. You don't want to peak too early. You want to make sure there's something to work on going into the last week of the season, and we've got plenty of things to work on. I think off the back of last week, and certainly even after a couple of the big victories, we knew that there was a huge amount that we needed to improve upon. And ultimately that's what pre-season is all about. It's about getting the physical fitness in the lads so that they're ready for the first game of the season, and just also making sure they are prepared for the sort of style of play that we want to implement.
Now let's look ahead to the season. Bristol Rovers, the visitors to Fratton Park. How much are the players anticipating this fixture?
I think they've been looking forward to it, honestly, since the back end of last year. So as soon as they came off the pitch against Wycombe, obviously not knowing we were going to play Bristol Rovers, but knowing that there is a game coming up on the 5th of August, the countdown almost begins from there, and it's just a case of players making sure they tick all the boxes in between then and now. And that anticipation builds and builds and builds. So I think it then sort of ramps up again once the fixture list is announced. And everything then becomes all about the 3 o'clock on August the 5th, and the fact it's at home probably heightens the expectation and certainly heightens the atmosphere around the place, because we would want that first fixture to be at home. It's against a really competitive side who I think are going to really challenge this year. So I think all of those put into the combination mean that it's going to be a really exciting game come 3 o'clock tomorrow.
As well as the anticipation, what's the general mood and feeling like among the camp at the moment?
I think it's really positive, and there's been a lot of positivity around the club, particularly with all the signings and the fact that we have largely managed to change quite a few elements of the squad over the summer. And I think everybody's hoping that it's going to be a sort of a new dawn and sort of a new era for the football club, where we really do challenge in the league and actually hopefully establish ourselves as one of the contenders. So there is, from my point of view, a massive amount of positivity. We've got to try and leverage that with the performance tomorrow, and the way we go about our business is going to be crucial to making sure we do try and stay on top of that. We need the support from the fans. We always have, we always will. And Fratton is a very, very difficult place to play for opposition when the fans get going. It can be a very intimidating place. You can sort of suck the ball into the Fratton end, as I've said many times, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that tomorrow. I just think, the quicker we can get going, and if we get a good start at home, the better. I think it will really kick-start our season.
You've obviously been building up to this game since the start of pre-season, but like you said just a minute ago, the switch sort of flicked just this week. So what has training been like?
Yeah, it's been more tactically focused, and we looked at the way that we were going to set up against Bristol Rovers from Tuesday onwards. So that was one thing that we did have the ability to do this week. We haven't actually got that luxury for the next few weeks because of the amount of Tuesday games, but to have the full building of the week has been really useful for us to actually get some full preparation in. Whenever you do have a free week during the season, it can often it's a blessing, because ultimately you've got a bit of time to actually work on the opposition, whereas with the Saturday, Tuesday games that come up, there's such a quick turnover. You don't really have any chance other than doing a bit of recovery work. So that had to happen at the start of the week, and it's pretty much gone to plan in terms of how we're going to prepare and the way we're going to play. Obviously, come kick-off tomorrow, it's a completely different ball game because the entire atmosphere changes. We're not entirely sure what Bristol Rovers are going to do, particularly because in pre-season there's only so much you can take from all of the games and all the footage that you see. On top of that, they've got quite a few new players as well, even one that they signed yesterday. So we just have to be prepared for ultimately plenty of unexpected twists and turns.
I asked you this last week after the Bristol City game about where the squad are in terms of where you want them to be. You said about another week of training will do it. Is that still the case? Yeah,
I think so. Ultimately, we'll see. And tomorrow's going to be the acid test. But we thought we were pretty well sort of lined up in terms of our physical fitness. That was the most important thing to tick off during pre-season, and the physicality that I thought we showed going into the 2 games last week was good. I don't think we fell down on fitness in either of those games. So this week was much more about sharpening up for us and making sure that we just ironed out a few creases in our game. We think the fitness is there, albeit you come to a competitive game and everything does change. The anxiety, I think the levels of anticipation, the way that your body reacts to an actual league game. So yeah, I think we'll see. We do feel ready going into the game, and I think the proof really is going to be in the pudding.
And we'll be welcomed by a packed out Fratton Park as well. Come 2:55 tomorrow, the lads will be walking out into a really, really loud PO4. So what's your message to the fans?
You know, just thank you for your support. We know it's going to be immense throughout the season, but genuinely from us, the louder the better. The more intimidating you make the atmosphere, the better. We love to give opposition teams a sort of a special welcome, and it genuinely is a really, really difficult place to play. I've been there I think 7 or 8 times. It's a horrible place to play when the fans are up and at it. And whilst we do, hopefully not too much, but whilst we do need a bit of patience in terms of the way that we want to develop and the way we want to play. We do want to be up and out of the blocks really quickly, and we're going to try and achieve that tomorrow. But if all of the fans could just sort of stick with us through thick and thin, like I know they will, then we'll be in a really, really good spot. And the more support we receive, the better. Trust me, it makes a huge difference. And a couple of things that I really do remember from last year. Funnily enough, when we won games at home, there were some great times, but there were 2 sort of incidences that really stick out in my mind. The first was when we went 1-0 down to Bolton, and within about 3 seconds, you could just hear the Fratton end erupt, and then the rest of the stadium decided they were going to follow suit, and all of a sudden we end up 3-1 up against a really, really tough side in that league. And funnily enough, another one was a similar incident against Wycombe. We went 1-0 down against Wycombe, trying to play out from the back. I think the fans sort of recognised it wasn't ideal, but thought, you know what, we're going to get behind the team and we're going to go with it. And all of a sudden, we probably put in one of our better performances of the season, really buoyed by what we heard from the entire stadium. So, more of that. Hopefully, we don't go down 1-0 at home too much. That's obviously the plan, but certainly, that support through thick and thin is really important for us.
So that's your message to the supporters. What will you be saying to your players ahead of kick-off tomorrow?
The most important thing for the players is to enjoy it and to make sure that they embrace the atmosphere and they embrace the challenge. They're all extremely lucky and privileged to be playing for Portsmouth. Every time they pull on the shirt, they need to realise that there are many players behind them that are champing at the bit to win it off them, and that's a really important part of the way that we want to do things this season. So I want them to play with freedom, and I do want them to enjoy it, but I also want them to play with that intensity and that sort of steeliness that Portsmouth players should play with, and ultimately whenever I speak to any of the fans, all they want to see and all we want to see is a bit of passion in terms of the way that the players go about their business. A bit of quality on top of that would be nice, we all know that, but there are some very basics I think everyone expects from the players, and we'll be doing exactly the same.
And finally, just outline the aims for the season.
I think the aim for us ultimately, we don't want to make sort of too many bones about it. We want to be competitive at the top end of the division. There's no doubt about that for us. We want to turn ourselves into a side that can compete with the top boys. We know that everybody connected to the club is probably sick of being in this league, so ultimately the ambition is to try and get out of it. That's what we're going to be doing everything to try and achieve, and that is a very, very difficult thing to do, but that's why we've been working extremely hard, obviously from the final whistle at the back end of that Wycombe game, and yeah, hopefully we can achieve that, and I think whatever we do, we'll be aiming to sort of try and make the supporters proud of the side.
Thanks, John.
Cheers, Max.